We grow a lot of our own food, but we aren't perfect. We have trials and we have successes throughout our growing season. But year on year, we're growing more food than ever before. And these are the ways that we grow our own food without going completely, utterly mad.
Today we're going to be harvesting our staple crops, sowing our autumn garden, and preparing our food for long-term storage.
The first thing we need to do is harvest our potatoes. Now, we all are hands-on and everyone is helping out. Potatoes is a really exciting thing to do. I love harvesting potatoes, but it's also one of those things that are really hands-on. So everybody in the family tends to help out. So we're all down and hands in pulling out all of these potatoes. The ground is super dusty because there hasn't been very much rain at this point. It's really ironic because now we're getting absolutely swamped with rain. But it made our potatoes be a bit scabby, which is a virus that attacks the skin when there's not enough water. There's a few things that I'm going to do to really ratify that, and I'm going to talk about them later on in the video when we put our potatoes out to cure.
Left the noise and the neon lights, traded the rush for starry nights. Now the mornings come soft and slow.
But I thought I would show you like an honest look of how our potatoes are doing this year. And we've had some amazing potato harvests where we've got absolutely buckets of potatoes. There's also one bed that completely failed, and there's two reasons I think that this particular bed failed. One being that we haven't grown in this bed before, and we did have a compost heap there. We incorporated that by tilling it into the soil, and I just don't think that the compost was good enough or fresh enough or whatever it was. It just didn't make a good medium for these potatoes, and I didn't take into account the trees that were on two sides of this bed, and I think they took a lot more water than I kind of comprehended, which meant that the tubers didn't really have the best environment for them to grow. I do have like a sort of evil scheme for this bed, but I'm going to completely revamp that in winter. So if you haven't subscribed and that's something you're interested in, it's a really great idea to do that now. With those potatoes harvested, I'm going to do one of two things. On the bed that was really excellent for potatoes, I'm going to sow winter potatoes, which is a massive advantage here in the UK. We don't have to go insane trying to grow everything in just 2 seasons. We can grow all 4 seasons, which is a massive advantage. I'm growing first early potatoes right now because they need to be quite fast developing due to the weather that we're going to be having. It's going to be cold and chilly, and potatoes do not like frosts. I'm going to be extending their season by putting some greenhouse fabric over the top of them and really protecting them from the frost, meaning that we can get larger potatoes and a longer growing season. So we don't have to worry too much if a couple of our beds fail, because we always have a second bite of the apple later on in the season. Whereas the other bed, I really do feel that it needs a bit of green manure going on in there. So I'm going to be sowing some green compost in the bed, which is wheat. I don't have to worry about the seed heads developing because I'm going to be completely, utterly changing what this space looks like and hopefully boost its productivity over the winter period. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is pulling out all of my cucumber plants. Our cucumber plants were a little bit sad this year. They just didn't have that get up and go. I do feel like having them damaged and die at the beginning of the season means that I sowed them so much later than I ever have, and they just didn't have the sort of early start that I feel that they needed to really thrive in our cooler summer. That's absolutely fine because I did get an absolute ton of cucumbers from one of my friends. You know, one hand loses and the other hand gains, but it's time for these plants to get out. One of the things I have learned is that I really have to be honest with myself and fair to myself and really think are these dying, struggling plants that are going to struggle along for another couple of weeks really giving me a decent harvest, or can this area be better spent doing something else like sowing carrots or whatever it is? And the answer to me is really these plants have to go. And I sowed a ton of carrots here, and I made the mistake of letting my summer crops really struggle along too far into the deep summer, which means that I don't have that time to establish my autumn and fall crops, which was a massive mistake when it comes to my food security, and used to really stress me out when I was rushing around at the last minute trying to find seeds that I can sow. This is so much easier. I can really have strong, healthy and robust plants going into fall.
Now the mornings come soft and slow, coffee steam and the roosters crow. Back to the land where the quiet runs deep, where the sky meets the fields and the trees fall asleep, growing alive with these two hands.
We do have another bed of carrots that we've sown quite a while ago, and we got a harvest of that today. I was hoping to pull out the whole lot of these carrots and have them in the refrigerator over the next, few months to eat on, but I saved the seeds myself, and I think I've mixed them all up because there was some little chantenay carrots, there was some huge yellow sown carrots, and some other different varieties of carrots, and the days of maturities was so much different. So I had some huge carrots and I had some that were still needing to grow on, which is fine. I did want to get this ready for my garlic, but it's absolutely fine. I do have the time to let this grow a little bit longer to get bigger carrots in there. Growing your own food, you really have to understand that not everything's going to go exactly how you want it to go, and sometimes you do need to make adaptations and changes in what you plan, and that's fine. After 8 years of growing, I've really become more of a flexible gardener, and it really does stop me getting into my own head and irritating myself about what I should be doing. But saying that, it is a bit sad that when I watch, YouTube and everything, and people get huge harvests, and we kind of spread it out more over the year.
Back to the land where the quiet runs deep, where the sky meets the fields and the trees fall asleep, growing alive with these two hands.
Where's that go?
Peace in my heart.
That also go in there.
Back to the land. Barefoot walks through rows of green.
In our greenhouse with peppers in there, and we had some basil, so we've taken the basil off and we're going to be drying that in our food store. And we had a ton of peppers that we harvested and made into salsa.
It feels like a prayer, simple and real with room to spare. Back to the land where the quiet runs deep, where the sky meets the fields and the trees fall asleep, growing alive with these two hands. Peace in my heart. Back to the land. Yeah, I found my place. Back to the land.
Once we took out the basil and the peppers, it was really time to put back into the soil. I put blood and fish bone meal down, and I topped it off with some organic compost and spread that out. This is going to be a really great medium for our carrots. I got really fine compost, so there's nothing for them to fork in. And I've done carrots and I've done radishes. Jasmine absolutely adores radishes. I don't like them at all. But they make also really good markers of where you've sown, so I thought that was a nice idea to get those in, and I can harvest them before the carrots even know that they're there. It was absolutely shocking how quickly those actually sprouted. This means that we're extending our season even further using things like covers, so that we have tasty and crunchy vegetables all the way through the season, and I'll be able to store those in the ground, which saves a lot of work. It is ridiculously more easy when you can store things in the ground. Now, once that's done, I'm off to put my cabbages in. My mum's here helping. She is a bit of a star when it comes to, you know, helping me wrangle up the kids, etc. And we smashed through. Best tip to growing out any cabbage plants would be to sow them out when they have 4 leaves. 3 or 4 leaves is absolutely perfect. It means that they're nice and robust, easy to handle, and they will be able to be transplanted super easily and effectively. These plants won't necessarily be ready this year, but they will give us a really big advantage next season when we've got these all coming in to make things like sauerkraut, etc. And cabbages really last well in the fridge. They last literally 3 months if you put them in a Ziploc bag. And I have 3 fridge freezers at the moment, so I have enough space to be able to store those really effectively. Now that we're home from the allotment, it's time to put all of those gorgeous vegetables away. Carrots are super easy to put away. All I do is chop the tops off at the allotment and I just pop them into Ziploc bags. The Ziploc bags stop them from losing any moisture and they last for literally months in the fridge. I've had carrots about a year old and they're still crunchy and delicious. They do go a little bit weird and slimy. You just wash them and they're still beautiful carrots. The next thing I need to store are my potatoes. But before I get to my potatoes, I really need to do something with these onions. So what I'm doing here is I'm just coming through and removing the top leaves. These have been curing for, feels like forever, and they're just, this one's completely, as you can see, completely utterly dry when it comes to this like umbilical cord bit, but there's a few of them. This one is still a little bit moist. I'm going to come through and cut all of the tops off, because if I don't do that, then obviously there's like a load of just extra material to store, and we want it to be completely sealed off so it stores really, really well. I'm going to be kind of dividing them up as well into ones that are going to be for long-term storage, like these bad boys, and ones for like medium to short-term storage, like these ones, because they're so much smaller. Really large onions store really well, and tiny little onions store not so great. So these are going to be for my canning and for my everyday use now, and then these will be for later. As to where I'm cutting it, it's just where it naturally has fallen. When you harvest an onion, you wait for it to fall over, and I'm just harvesting it where it fell. So these are my second harvest of onions, and it's only a smaller one, the ones that just needed a little bit of extra time to like fall over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them under so that they're out of the way, but I'm not going to put them directly on the floor because I worry about them getting a little bit too cold on the floor. I've just got a piece of plastic under here, and I'm going to put a box down so that they're not directly on the floor, and I'm going to leave them to and I'm going to leave them to dry out for another 2 weeks just to make sure that this bit is completely utterly sealed. I don't want them rotting. Learning to store food in bulk has really had the biggest impact on me being able to grow a year's worth of food, and that's because really in my climate it just isn't sustainable to grow a year's worth of food fresh to pick every single day. So learning to store food for a long period of time has changed the way that I grow and the way that I eat.
Tomatoes ripe and the soil clean. Every sunset feels like a prayer, simple and real with room to spare.
So overall I am quite happy with my potato harvest. I've got some absolute whoppers, to be honest, but these aren't all the potatoes that we've sown this year. We've got one more bed of main crop potatoes, which I really hope has done really well. You've got so much potential, don't you, in a bed that you haven't gone through yet. And also I've got all my my first earlies and second earlies already storing. Once again, I do need to grow a little bit more next year, but this is a very good sort of platform to start from. I also have a absolute an absolute ton of reject potatoes, which will be going into the fridge behind me and going to be used up as soon as I've finished all the ones in the garage, and of course my second earlies, because this will store for a couple of months anyway. And none of these are overly squishy, but they do need to be used up sooner rather than later. Any that are like green, I won't be eating. They actually build up a certain toxin that are not good for you to eat, so I won't be eating those ones, so I'll be filtering those out. If you've got any suggestions of how we can grow even more without going completely insane, let us know down below. What are your top tricks, because I learn the most from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't done already, please consider subscribing. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.